Let's revise what we did last time. Said any psychological problem, if anyone brings to you, you can classify that into two parts. Either it has to do with brain damage or something congenital, in which case it becomes a neurological problem and not our problem. But if there is no physical damage, no congenital problem, then it becomes a problem to be dealt with either by psychiatry or by psychotherapy or both. So you can divide all psychological well-being issues into two, the neurological side and the psychiatric and psychotherapy side. Then we came to the point that if we look at different types of psychotherapies in operation today, you have more than 150 types of psychotherapies in operation across the world, out of which 55 are more common. And out of this 55, you can look at 10 to 15 major psychotherapy approaches. And these 10 to 15 major psychotherapy approaches, they cover 75% of the market. Rest 25% is covered by rest of psychotherapies. Now, if we look at this 10 to 15 major psychotherapy approaches, you can divide them into 5 broad categories. First, the cognitively driven psychotherapies, where the focus is completely on thought. So these are psychotherapies which are called cognitive psychotherapies. And in this category fall two approaches very popular: cognitive therapy, CT, and rational emotive therapy, RET. Don't bother about what they are, just know the names for the moment. Slowly as we expand upon it, it will elaborate and take its meaning. Second, behavioral therapies or BT. Third category, depth psychology, which deals with the unconscious mind. So here we have psychoanalysis, intensive short-term dynamic psychotherapy, ISTDP, Gestalt. The focus here is on the unconscious mind, affect, dream analysis, and so on. Fourth category is the philosophically oriented psychotherapies, which are existential and logo. And then we have combination of the above, like you can combine cognitive and behavioral to create CBT. You can create CBT and Eastern technique of mindfulness and yoga to create DBT. You can combine some principles of CBT and psychoanalysis to create ISTDP. You can combine ISTDP and other creative techniques to create EDT. So these combinations, they create different kind of eclectic, or they can create different kind of psychotherapies. You can also have eclectic approach where you use more than one in the course of treatment. That you may have a series of psychoanalytically oriented sessions and then one session of ISTDP. Again, a series of psychoanalytically oriented session, one session of ISTDP. Combination, eclectic, sorry, combination. Eclectic also. It's eclectic also, combination also. And then there is an area of holistic healing where techniques like Reiki, pranic healing, Tai Chi, meditation, they are also used. So you can create a combo not only of CT and BT, you can also create a combo of psychoanalysis and pranic healing, or CBT and pranic healing. All these combinations are actually in practice, although officially it does not happen. So this is the scene, the landscape that we see today. Any questions on this? The core of the slide is very clear that the major 10 to 15 psychotherapies today in vogue across the world, which command 75% of the market, can be classified into 5 categories: cognitive, behavioral, depth, philosophical, and combination. Is this clear? So we were looking at what are the core players in the psychological field. If you look at the area of the psychological canvas, what are the core players? The core players are, from a Western psychotherapy point of view, thought, emotion, and behavior. That's it. So thought, emotion, and behavior are the three core players in the landscape of psychotherapy and psychological well-being from a Western psychotherapy point of view. If you take a psychiatric and neurological point of view, two more players come in: biochemistry and genes, and physical safety or damage. If you take Ayurvedic standpoint, lifestyle comes in. If you take the Eastern energy standpoint, Reiki, pranic healing, Tai Chi comes in. If you take the spiritual standpoint, the karma comes in. And if you take a Eastern standpoint or a logotherapy standpoint, the goal of life or the goal of the world or the self journey, all of this come in. So this is the broad landscape of psychotherapy and the players in the psychotherapy arena. So our discussion will focus essentially upon thought, emotion, and behavior, the arena of Western psychotherapy. And occasionally we will take a stab at energy and self journey. Then we took a look at the fundamentals of psychoanalysis. What are the principles of psychoanalysis? This is very important. That when we say psychoanalysis, what are the foundational principles of this science? First, existence of the unconscious. So on this point, there is a wide debate. Those who practice cognitive therapy or CBT, they don't give much importance to the existence of unconscious mind. But the whole edifice of psychoanalysis is based on the existence of unconscious mind. Now, what is unconscious mind? That part of our mind which is outside of our awareness and control. Okay. So this brings up a question: why should the unconscious mind exist in the first place? Anyone? This is the first principle of psychoanalysis, is the existence of the unconscious. If you cancel this principle, the whole edifice will come crumbling down. Nothing will be left of psychoanalysis. So the question is, if we take this to be an axiomatic truth that the unconscious mind exists, the natural question is, why should it exist in the first place? And there can be two ways of approaching this. If you take a very fundamental why, it goes into philosophy. It's like saying, why should the world exist in the first place? Or why should we have the capacity to know in the first place? So that will be one category of whys which are outside of science. They can be dealt with only in philosophy. In Indian spirituality, they say they can be questioned and answered only in the world of words. They cannot be tested in laboratory or the real world. You can deal with them only in the world of words. That's it. But if you don't go that far and still remain in the area of science and metapsychology to the max, why do you think the unconscious should exist?
To save the core emotions. I mean, the repressed things, repressed emotions and memory, and so some kind of we can say the storage.
Right, correct. So let us look at what Dhruv is saying is correct. Let us expand upon what he is saying, and let us look at the reasons why the unconscious mind should exist in the first place. Reason number one, there are feelings that are generated inside of us which are so unpleasant that we don't want to feel them. And therefore, we need one part of the mind where all of these things can be stored and we don't have to access them and feel them. So, as a species, we are a species of pleasure. We are pleasure-driven beings. Our fundamental desire is to have ceaseless pleasure without a moment of pain. And this is what we define as heaven. That we all want to be in a state where there is ceaseless pleasure without a moment of pain. We don't like pain. So anything that is painful in any way. So emotions like anger, pain, envy, shame, jealousy, guilt, these are uncomfortable, unpleasant emotions which we don't want to feel, and therefore we use one part of the mind to keep all of this locked away. So first reason for existence of unconscious is that we are beings of pleasure. We don't want to feel difficult feelings which are generated in us, and as the reality is, there is no way we can stop generation of these feelings. Now, if generation cannot be stopped and we don't want to feel, the only way out is to suppress them into one part of the mind and not visit that part of the mind. What else can we do? So the first reason is this. Second reason,
So yeah.
Dhruval.
Sorry for interrupting you here.
Please
So
go on.
emotions are difficult to bear, or the effect of emotions.
They are not different in one sense. So there are three words which are used here: affect, feeling, and emotion. Right? And everyone defines these three words differently. Right? Some people say feelings are those emotions which are consciously felt. Right? Whereas emotions can be those which are consciously felt or in the unconscious not felt. So suppose I have anger towards my father. It is repressed in the unconscious. I don't feel it. So some people will say that is not a feeling, but it is an emotion in the unconscious. So some people will use this definition that what you consciously feel is feeling, but what is generated but kept repressed in the unconscious mind is emotion but not feeling, and both of them put together is affect. Some people will not use the word affect, but they will say emotion contains both unconscious and conscious. So feeling is a type of emotion, but emotion is not a type of feeling in the sense emotion can be feeling felt consciously or unconsciously. This is a play of definitions. But what we say in our language technically is that if something is not a thought, it is an affect. Right? And the affect may be conscious or unconscious, and you can give whatever names you want. But essentially, we are looking at three players in the psychological area: thought, affect, and behavior. Behavior is action, so keep it aside. Intrapsychically speaking, there are two things inside the mind: thought and affect. Right? And affect can be conscious or unconscious, and you can give names to them. The common names people give are that which is consciously felt is feeling. What is not consciously felt, you call unconscious affect or unconscious emotion or any name that you please. Okay. Now, the problem is, what is the result if any unconscious difficult affect comes up? That is very unpleasant and painful, and we want to avoid that pain. So we want to avoid rising of unconscious affect, because if it becomes conscious, it is painful. So this is one reason for existence of unconscious, prevention of unconscious affect from coming up, particularly negative unconscious affect. Can you keep positive unconscious affect also in the unconscious? How?
Yes, of course.
Why should you keep positive feelings in the unconscious?
Because I've seen some people repress the feeling of happiness. They think that they don't have right to feel happiness.
True.
So they just suppress it.
True. So one fear is of disintegration anxiety. That some people have a fear that if they allow the whole effervescence to come up and just allow full happiness to come up, there is a fear of disintegration. So this deep-seated fear of disintegration does not allow them to feel fully happiness. So part of it is kept repressed. Another group of people fear that if they become too happy and express, the parents will somehow pass a difficult comment, right, which will be painful. Or something of that sort. Some people have
anxiety will rise. They have positive feelings towards the other figure. The parental figure.
Duval, can you repeat? There was some net problem. I could not hear you.
Yeah, I was saying that in the Oedipal complex, if someone has the love feeling or positive feelings towards his mother, obviously that time also it will create a castration anxiety.
True. Very true. So this is also one more reason why we keep positive feelings repressed, because the positive feelings are towards somebody which is morally not acceptable, or in reality fear provoking. So morality or reality makes it difficult. For example, if a girl has loving feelings, romantic feelings towards her own brother-in-law, right, then even though the feeling is of love, it has to be repressed, because not accepted in society and the consequences are very difficult. Yeah, Kiona.
You should really watch this one movie.
Which one?
It's called Gehraiya. It has a similar plot.
I just saw it.
I do that.
Yeah.
So the second difficulty is the consequences of feelings, even if they are positive. The third reason for the existence of unconscious is limited processing capability. So right at this moment, the fan or the AC or the tube light will be on in your room and the stimulus will be falling on the whole body. But you won't pay attention to it till I pointed this out to you right now. So at any given point in time, we have no choice but to exercise what is called selective attention. That of all the stimuli coming in, we can process only a few, and what we cannot has to be put in storage somewhere. So limited processing capacity is the third reason. Fourth reason is the necessity of reflex. That when it comes to a life-threatening situation, we don't have the luxury to think elaborately. We need to use templates which are reflex, and we need somewhere to store these templates. And the storage of that templates for future use happens in the unconscious. Fifth is we use too much of memory because of the stimuli coming from everywhere and our engagement with everywhere, and that has to go into the unconscious, and only that part necessary has to be brought out. Sixth is use and misuse of information. Something which happened in the first standard or second standard, you don't want to remember, you want to focus on the today. So in order to allow you to focus on today, we have to put all of that unused memory into the unconscious. Right? And seventh, we need some part of us which keeps solving problems and allows us to sort of bear reality, which is very difficult to bear because most of our desires are not fulfilled. So one part of the brain or the mind dreams about what cannot be achieved in real life and uses this whole function of fantasy. And we don't want to use our conscious mind for it. And therefore, the unconscious mind is used for creating fantasies, processing fantasies, and allowing us to bear this world. Right? So all these are reasons for existence of unconscious. First principle of psychoanalysis. Second principle, psychic determinism, that nothing happens without a reason. So if somebody is washing hands 10 times a day, we will not allow it to pass by saying it's just happening like that. We really believe there is a causality to it. Right? There is no effect without a cause. So there is psychic determinism, that the cause-effect principle of science is in operation. Primacy of early life, that childhood is more important than the adult life in determining the problems. Fourth, coexistence of reality and fantasy, that there cannot be a man who is like a logic machine. Every man lives in reality and fantasy. And fantasies are of two types: fantasies with F, which are day fantasies or fantasies in dreams, and fantasies with PH, which are completely unconscious and come up only in very deep therapy. Okay? These fantasies don't come up even in dreams. Okay? Very deep-seated. Fifth principle, psychic health is on a continuum, in the sense there is nothing like a perfect body or a perfect mind, and we are all on a continuum. The healthy and the sick are all on the same continuum. Nobody is at any extreme. And the way of healing is make the unconscious conscious and integrate it and do catharsis. So what is the way of healing in psychoanalysis? Make the unconscious idea conscious, integrate it in awareness and the conscious mind, and feel the feelings and let them go. Okay. So this is the way of healing. This is what we did last time, and then we said what are the different schools of psychoanalysis. These are some of the major schools are those created by Sigmund Freud, Carl Jung, Alfred Adler, Melanie Klein, Winnicott, Kohut, Lacan, Bion, and Davanlu. We will place more importance on Freud, Klein, Jung, and Kohut. Right? Rest of the schools we will touch, but we will not go much deeper into. But Freud, Klein, Kohut, and Jung we will put more time into. And all these schools, they all follow the principles of psychoanalysis, but they have differences in terms of these points. They all have a different idea about model of the mind, about generation of pathology, about healing of pathology, and how to conduct therapy. Right? Slowly we will go into each of them. And we said when you do psychotherapy using psychoanalysis, you call it psychoanalytic psychotherapy. And if you do pure psychoanalysis, then the focus is not on healing, it is just to know yourself. So a person who has completely got healed in psychoanalytic psychotherapy may still continue with psychoanalysis just to know oneself. Okay. So you don't have to stop psychoanalysis once you get healed, but then the focus changes. Right? Only 1% of people come to us for pure psychoanalysis, 99% come to us only for psychoanalytic psychotherapy. Okay. You can divide all the psychoanalytic schools, all these schools, you can divide into these 5 categories. Schools which are based upon drive frustration, which means there is a strong desire, frustrated, and therefore the problem. Second, schools, so Freudian school falls in this drive frustration model, drive frustration category. Melanie Klein's school falls in the object relations, which means you connect to an object and either the object leaves you or the object persecutes you, attacks you. So this abandonment, loss, and persecution, they are core ideas in Kleinian school or object relation schools. Then we have Winnicott school, which is independent, which is neither of the above. And he places more importance on presence of good enough mother in early childhood. Then we have Kohut school called self psychology. And the 4th category is, okay, so drive frustration category, object relations category, independent category, self psychology category, in which example is Kohut school. And here the focus is on early life omnipotence and exhibitionism of the child and the parents' acknowledgement and admiration of the child, allowing the child to build up the confidence. But if the parents are not acknowledging and admiring enough, the child develops inferiority and shame and an unhealthy sense of self. And the 5th category is intersubjective school, where Stern and Benjamin have done some work, which says that when 2 people meet in the room, because of the specificity of 2 people, a unique atmosphere is created in which the therapy happens. So the specificity of the 2 people is more important than just the theory that is being followed. So see, we said Sigmund Freud was the father of psychoanalysis, and he started from cases on hysteria. So we'll start from here. This session is going to be over. I'll give a new link and we'll start from this point. Okay. Any questions you have? Okay. Let me send you the new link.
No, sir.